Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, we begin our lesson tonight by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity that we are able to continue with our lesson in Adab ini Suluk al-Murid and also Muqaddimah hadramiyyah. Today, due to some errands I have, the class starts late, so we only have about in half an hour before the time of Isha, and inshallah ta'ala we will enter into our first kitab, that is Adab ini Suluk al-Murid. Inshallah we just take a bit of time before we continue with our lesson in Muqaddimah hadramiyyah. So in our last lesson in Adab ini Suluk al-Murid, we are still in the chapter 6 of this kitab, where Al-Imam al-Haddad speaks about the importance on focusing on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in worship. So the gist of what he mentioned in the beginning is the importance of us using the time that is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards his obedience. This is what he mentioned. If you look at page 22, he said that let him spend his breaths carefully. Meaning the time. So the scholars of tasawwuf they use this metaphorical term to express time in the form of breath. Every breath we take, a certain time or moment has passed, and this is a reflection of time. Hold on to his time. Do not let it pass wastefully, be it a little or long time, except to spend it in what takes him closer to Allah and benefit him on the day he meets him. So this is the conscience or the state of muraqabah is what some scholars mention, that a person always reflects on the ni'mah of time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him with. The time that is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one of the biggest blessing. So how are we able to use our time? And we are able to reflect and ponder how we are using the time that is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which it gives us any benefit in this life and also in the hereafter. So if we find, for example, there are time that is wasted, then we must understand that time if it has passed it can never be retained again. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with tawfiq. So Al-Imam al-Haddad begin by speaking about the importance of this understanding and this reflection, and then he speaks about what are the important things that we have to equip ourselves in the time that is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let us see what are the few things that he mentioned, and it is important for us as seekers of Allah to pay attention to so many of these things, because this is how the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ulama, they look at life and how we are able to benefit from this life to attain any success in akhirah. So the first thing he mentioned, it is incumbent upon him to have daily recitals or a routine of every kind of worship. So this is important advice for all of us, including myself. We have to look at the amount of ibadah that we are doing daily. So for example, we begin by the time we wake up from our sleep, and all the way until we sleep for the night. So if we ponder upon our daily routine, then we are able to understand how we use the time, and whether the time that we use for the things that we do in reality gives us the benefit, as what is mentioned by the author. So he speaks about the daily recitals. Daily recitals include the awrad. That is the daily invocation in terms of the adhkar that we recite daily, and likewise the sunnah prayers the qabliyah and the ba'diyah, the rawatib prayers, the witr prayers, likewise the adhkar after prayers, the adhkar before prayers, the adhkar before entering the toilet, going out from the toilet, and before we sleep, and after wake up from sleep, before we eat and after we eat. So we have to look at our life, and then we have to ponder upon how much do we do in our daily practice. So this is how we are able to judge any ourselves, and how are we able any to understand that in reality any we are using the time any that is given any in a way that will attain inshallah ta'ala the pleasure any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is some of the things any that he teaches us, and how are we able any to ponder any upon, or to reflect any upon our own ibadah, daily any rituals. Then he mentions so that he will have a number of those to hold on to and not neglect any of them, whether in difficult or easy times. So there is any certain things any that are established in terms any of invocations, and in terms any of certain any prayers, and certain any dua, and certain recitation any of the Quran, and certain any tasbih and tahmid. So this is the thing any that we have any to hold on to. He should read any the Quran frequently, and to reflect any on its meaning, and recite it harmoniously, any with tajweed, with the proper any recitation. And one thing any about the recitation any of the Quran, and it is very important for us to take note that the Quran any has to be recited any properly, any meaning. It has any to be recited with the correct any pronunciation, the correct any form of lengthening. This is point number one. And point number two any is about any to reflect any upon the meanings any of the Quran. So whenever any we speak any about the recitation any of the Quran, these are the two any main important any aspects any pertaining to the recitation of the Quran. Then only any Quran any can have an effect any on us. So we pray that Allah make it easy and inshallah ta'ala. So daily any we should have any daily invocations in the form of adhkar, and likewise any recitation any of the Quran. Also while reciting, you should reflect on the greatness any of the speaker in the recitation any of his words, and not like those who recite negligently, or those any who recite any the Quran eloquently with beautiful melodious voices, while whose hearts are devoid of the exaltation nor reverence for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are people any who recite the Quran very well, but they do not have any tadabbur, no reflection any upon the meanings. And likewise any there are people any who does not any recite any the Quran, and does not know how to recite any the Quran, but they might any be reflecting any on the meanings any of the Quran. They read it in the form it was sent down from its opening to its end, and know nothing of its meanings, nor of the reasons and occasions for sending each part any of it down. This is asbabun nuzul. Yani to equip any ourselves any with this knowledge. Had they known, they would have acted. So the best any of those any who recite in the Quran are those any who reflect upon the meanings, and those any who put it into any practice. So inshallah ta'ala, from some many of these passages any that we have read any from Adab ini Sulukil Murid, and we can understand where the author any place any important in. Yani number one, and he speaks any about the daily invocations, and including any the sunnah any prayers, and the daily norm any that we do as a daily any practice. This has to be reflected, and we have any to improvise any ourselves, and we have any to put any a start any to being any in this path, yani where we are able any to recite a certain amount. Yani it goes back any to our own any capacity. So there must be any a certain amount any of daily any invocations any that we have to engage ourselves with. And point number two, any he speaks any about recitation any of the Quran any with any concentration and understanding any of its meaning. So this is some any of the few things any that he mentioned, inshallah ta'ala. In next week, and inshallah we continue any from here, and there are a few other things any that he will mention any after this. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us any with the ability any to practice any what we have learned. So he's reading any the words of Imam al-Haddad. MashaAllah, yani it gives any our hearts hope, and also yani it brightens any the heart. At least any when you put any intention, inshallah, any Allah any will bless you any with the reward. So all of us inshallah who are listening, including myself, all of us any we put in intention, inshallah, yani to practice any what we have learned any today. So to give any importance any to the daily invocations, and also the recitation any of the Quran. May Allah bless us with easiness. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. So inshallah ta'ala, now any we will enter into our next any kitab of Muqaddimah hadramiyyah. And last week any we were speaking any about the chapter any of Istihadah. So as you look here, this is the text any of Al-Imam Bayjuri, where he speaks any about the 7 situations any of Istihadah. In English any we call it the chronic vaginal discharge. So I mentioned this any basically any last week, and last week I didn't translate. There was a mistake in translation. Somebody any point out any in one of the WhatsApp group. So just any take note. So what we do any is I actually reposted the translation in my Facebook. So it is slight any mistake. It is a slight mistake, I believe, and it's point number 3. Any one of the four any conditions. So inshallah, any what we do, inshallah, any we will go through it any again. So the author any mentioned any the first type any of istihadah. We do any revision. Wallahu alam, maybe we don't have time to speak about the second part. But we are not in a hurry in reality. So inshallah, what is important is that we understand the topic, inshallah. Type, so now when we go through this again, the author mentioned As-Suratul Ula, the first situation. I also do not have time to translate fully today. Later on, inshallah, we go back to this. But the Arabic, as far as what the author is saying, he's speaking about al-Mubtadaah. Al-Mubtadaah, as what I mentioned last week, it is a situation where a girl or a woman who has never experienced any menses, and suddenly she saw blood. She is more than 9 years old, because in the minimum age is 9. That's what we mentioned in the beginning of the chapter of menses. So if a woman or lady, for example, who has reached a certain age, and she has never experienced any menses, and then suddenly she saw blood, for example. So this we call her al-Mubtadaah. Al-Mubtadaah comes from the word ibtida, the beginner. I translate as the beginner. Then he mentioned, and this any person is able to distinguish the color of blood. Is able to distinguish the blood in itself, by the color. So he mentioned وَهِيَ الْمُبْتَدَأَ أَيْ أَوَّلُ مَا إِبْتَدَأَهَا دَمُ الْمُمَيِّزَةِ. She is mumayyizah. She is able to distinguish the strong blood and the weaker blood. وَهِيَ الَّتِي تَرَى قَوِيًّا وَضَعِيفًا كَالْأَسْوَدِ وَالْأَحْمَرِ. Then he gave any example. Strong blood and it will be the black in color, or weak blood and it will be red. If she saw black in color and red in color, so the black is considered to be the stronger in color, whereas the red is the weaker one. فَالضَّعِيفُ وَإِنْ طَالَ إِسْتِحَاضَةً. So there is no limit to the weaker blood. So if she saw the strong blood, that is black and in color, and she saw red and in color, so the red is considered to be istihadah, whereas the thicker blood or the darker blood is considered to be any hayd. Even if the weaker blood can continue for many days, can continue for 20 days for example, or 25 days. And then he mentioned wal qawiyyu haydun. The thicker blood or the stronger blood is considered to be menses under 4 conditions. These are the 4 conditions that we mentioned. So inshallah we run through it again. I will give some examples, and inshallah from there we move on. So number 1, he said بِشَرْطِ أَنْ لَا يَنْقُصَ الْقَوِيُّ عَنْ أَقَلِّ الْحَيْضِ. That the strong blood and it cannot be lesser than aqallil hayd is 24 hours, layl wa nahar. So if the strong blood is lesser than 24 hours, it is not any menses. It is not considered to be what you call it. We cannot be saying that the stronger color is considered to be menses, because it is less than 24 hours. So this is the first condition. The strong blood must be more than 24 hours. So this again, it is about the situation where she saw black and red. This is an example where she saw black and red. So if the black blood is less than 24 hours, we cannot be applying this concept of the darker color is menses and the weaker color is istihadah. It cannot work that way if any of the conditions is not met. Just like the first condition as what we mentioned. Number 2, an la ya'bura aktharuhu. The strong blood should not exceed 15 days. Yani the maximum any number any of the maximum any number any of days. Now this is any the mistake of the translation I believe in last week. So the strong blood any should not exceed more than 15 days. Any for example any if she saw blood for 20 days any for example 16 days any black in color, 4 days any red in color, we cannot be saying 16 days any is menses, 4 days any is istihadah. Why? Because any it exceed more than 15 days. So the maximum number of days for menses any is 15 days, and that's what we mentioned before this. So we cannot any apply any this principle by this distinguishment any of colors. So this is any point in number 2. Number 3, wa an la yanqus ad-da'ifu an aqalli tuhri. The weaker blood any should not any be less any than the minimum any number of clean days, that is 15 days. This is in a situation if she saw blood any after that which is strong. So this is an example any which I gave any last week. Inshallah later any we come back into this example. But I hope any it is clear. Point number 4, any wa an yakuna wila'an, that the blood any must be continuous. Then the author any gave any example, not any continuous any meaning she saw blood any black in color for one day, and then the next day any she saw red any in color, and then black in color, and then red in color. This is not any continuous, so we cannot any apply any the concept that the darker color any is menses and the weaker color any is considered any to be istihadah. So he said, فَإِن نَقَصَ الْقَوِيُّ عَنْ أَقَلِّ الْحَيْضِ. The first situation, any if any the strong blood any is less any than the minimum any menses, then it is not any, we cannot any consider the color any as a correct any distinguishment. Number 2, أَوْ عَبَرَ أَكْثَرُهُ, the stronger blood any exceeds any the maximum number of days any for menses, or نَقَصَ الضَّعِيفُ عَنْ أَقَلِّ طُهْرِ. This is just any repetition. If any the weaker blood any is less any then the minimum any days any of the clean days, that is any 15 days. أو لم يكن ولاءً, or it is not any continuous, كما رأت يوما أسود ويوما أحمر وهكذا. Just like any she saw any one day black and one day red. فهي فاقدة شرط من شروط التمييز وسيأتي حكمها. So if any of these 4 any happens, then we do not consider she is mumayyizah. We do not any consider her to be mumayyizah. So yani there is any another any ruling any to this. So we cannot any be saying that the what you call it, the darker blood any is menses and the weaker blood any is istihadah. Just now I tried to translate the second slide, but because any of time and I do not have much time I need to edit. Afwan ala kulli hal. So this basically any gist any of what I mentioned earlier, the translation. The one who experienced any blood any for the first time, she saw strong and weak bloods like black and red. And then as for the strong blood, it will be considered to be menses under these 4 conditions. And in number 1, it is not less than 24 hours. Number 2, it does not extend to more than 15 days. It is not less than the minimum clean days. This is any pertaining any to the weaker blood, and it is continuous. And then this is the example. Okay, now yani we go back and to give any some examples. So these are some of the examples. A woman and he saw blood and for 10 days and black in color, and then and for 10 days and red in color. So we say the black the black blood and is considered to be menses, and the red and is considered to be any istihadah. This one any no problem any, because any this one any we say it is more than 24 hours. The blood and is more than 24 hours and less than the maximum number any of menses. So 10 days is more than the minimum and less any than the maximum. So no issue any we say that it is any menses. The black blood and is menses, whereas any the red blood any is istihadah. And then this is the next part any is the condition any number 3. Condition any number 3, 10 days any black. 10 days any black, and then 10 days red, and then 10 days black. So can you see this? So if a woman any for example and she said this is my cycle. This is any is my cycle. Yani 10 days black, and then 10 days red, and then 10 days black. Can we say that the first 10 days any is menses? No, this is not any menses. Why? Because in between yani the dark color, in between any the dark color, we have any this in between, which is any the lighter color, and it is less any than 15 days. This is any the condition number 3. And if you look at the condition number 3, the author any mentioned, Imam Bajuri any mentioned that the weaker blood and it cannot be less than the what you call it minimum clean days, that is 15 days. So since the weaker blood is less any than 15 days, so we do not any consider the black any to be menses and the red any to be istihadah. So how do we calculate any the menses? The menses any is 1 day, because now here we are talking any about mubtadaah. Since any this condition cannot be applied, so it is as though she is unable any to distinguish any the blood. So she is ghayrul mumayyizah, not mumayyizah. She is mubtadaah ghayrul mumayyizah. So if you have any a woman who is a beginner, who never experienced any menses, and suddenly any she saw blood any for 20 days or for 30 days any for example, and she cannot differentiate the blood, whether she, literally any she cannot differentiate any by assessing any the color all the same, or any of the 4 conditions any as what we mentioned any earlier is cannot be applied. So she takes any the ruling any of ghayrul mumayyizah, not mumayyizah. So if ghayrul mumayyizah and she is a mubtada'a, yani a beginner yani to menses, then the menses any is the first day, any day 1. Day 1 any is considered to be the menses. So if she can remember any for example that she saw blood any for example in the 3rd any of Rabiul Awal for example, she saw blood any in the 3rd any of Rabiul Awal, or the 10th any of Rabiul Awal any for example, and then from the 10th any of Rabiul Awal any all the way to Rabiul Akhir, 10 any Rabiul Awal to 10 any Rabiul Akhir. So she knows any that she first any spotted any blood on the 10 any Rabiul Awal. So we say that the first day any is considered to be menses, the rest any is considered to be any istihadah. The rest any is considered to be any istihadah. So the menses any is considered to be menses and considered to be 1 day. So I hope any this is clear any inshallah. Actually any I wanted to write any more any example, is just any I do not have time any today due any to some errands any that what you call it I was caught up with today. But ala kulli hal, pertaining any to the 4th condition I mentioned earlier, that she saw 1 day black, 1 day red, 1 day black, 1 day red, 1 day black, 1 day red for 20 days any for example. So in this situation, how do you ascertain any menses any or non-menses? So again any we say this is mubtada'a ghayrul mumayyizah, even though any she can see the difference any of the colors any of the blood, but we do not any consider her any to be a mumayyizah, that we can apply the ruling of tamyiz. So she is considered to be ghayrul mumayyizah, so we say that the menses any is considered to be the first day. The first day is considered to be any the menses. So the rest any is considered any to be one. The rest any is considered any to be istihadah. It is considered any to be any istihadah. Taib. Now any we go on any to the second any situation. This is what you call it, some any colors, different colors any of period. So as you can see any sometimes any it is dark in color, sometimes any it is light in color. This is any for basically more in it for the men who what you call it might not yani know any about some any of these differences any in colors and when it comes any to menses. So we have any blood that is orangey, blood any that is maroon, blood any that is greyish. Now this any happens any to some any women. Some women any for example experiencing any sickness, the blood becomes any yellowish. So these are some of the difference any of colors. Now inshallah ta'ala, now we go any to the second part. Also I do not have time to translate today. Inshallah all this any I'll try to translate into my best inshallah in the upcoming any lesson. Inshallah once after some time, once I get everything up, inshallah any I will share any this translation inshallah. So now any we go any to the second any situation. So the author any mentioned wahia al mubtada'atu ay awwalu ma ibtada'a haddamu kama taqaddama ghayrul mumayyizah. So now any is the second any situation, istihadah of the beginner with non-distinctive blood characteristics. So a simple an example, and for example, a woman again, she's a mubtada'a, she has never any experienced menses, and then suddenly she saw blood for 20 days. She saw blood for how many days? 20 days. Now this exceeds the maximum number of days and for menses. We cannot only be saying the whole of 20 days it's menses. And another issue is she cannot differentiate the color of the blood. It's all red, and for example 20 days straight, and it is all considered to be red. So this is what we call as Mubtadaah Mumayyizah. Either she cannot differentiate any of the blood, or any of the characteristics any of tamyiz any is not any present, as what we mentioned any in our previous and also earlier. So this is any important any for us any to take note, especially any for ladies. وهي المبتدأ أي أول ما ابتدأها الدم كما تقدم غير المميزة وهي التي تراه بصفة واحدة. This is an example. And she saw any blood any with one characteristic, red, all of them, and it becomes red, or black, the whole, and it becomes black. ومثلها المميزة التي فقدت شرطا من شروط التمييز. This is what we mentioned any earlier. فقدت any شرطا من شروط التمييز. Any of the four conditions any is not present, she is any considered any to be غير مميزة. غير المميزة, even though yani she can see the difference any in the colors. Now this is the thing that a lot any I think a lot any of women any they are confused any in this part. I think so, because any we are in need any to memorize any these four conditions. So that is why any I take any sometime any to revise any again. Inshallah any hopefully any it becomes any clear. Then what happens now? Yani now any you have a beginner. Either she saw blood any 20 days any red in color, she cannot differentiate the blood, or she saw blood in different colors, but the conditions any of tamyiz, as what we mentioned, is not any present. So how do we ascertain any menses any for her? So the author any mentioned فَحَيْضُهَا يَوْمٌ وَلَيْلَةٌ. So the menses any is 24 hours. يَوْمٌ وَلَيْلَةٌ, yani the first day any when she saw any blood, the first any 24 hours any is considered any to be menses. وَطُهْرُهَا تِسْعٌ وَعِشْرُونَ. So the what you call it, the clean days, the rest of it any is considered to be clean days. So 29 days any is considered to be clean days. The first day any is considered any to be any menses. Because now any again, if she is a beginner, meaning she doesn't have any norm, she doesn't have any norm, then we go back and into the minimum number of minimum any menses, that is 24 hours. So how do we ascertain any the menses? It is the first day. It is the first day when she saw blood. This is in a situation if she remembers when any she saw blood. But what happens any if she doesn't remember when is the first day? And we ask her any for example, she said that she saw blood any for example any 20 days what you call it, or she said that more than 15 days, and for example she saw blood any red and in color. We ask her when do you start any seeing any this blood? She cannot any remember. If she cannot any remember, then it falls any into another category. This is not any considered any to be Mubtadaah Mumayyizah. It is considered any to be mutahayyirah. And this is the thing any that inshallah maybe any next week any we will speak about. Yani a situation anywhere a woman for example she forgets completely when she saw blood, and what you call it, either she is a mubtada'a meaning a beginner, or she is even any mu'tada, but she forgets that her norm, how many days any usually her menses any is. This is any a situation where our fuqaha any mention it is a situation any of the al-mutahayyira or yani mutahayyira. We have two terms, yani mutahayyira yani ismul fa'il, and mutahayyira yani ismul maf'ul. Mutahayyira yani basically the meaning of mutahayyir is the one any who cause hayran any to others. Yani the what you call it, amazement. The one any who cause any amazement. The reason why she's called any mutahayyira because any hayyaratil faqih. Yani she caused any amazement any to the faqih that she is asking. Because any it is difficult any to ascertain any her menses. Or mutahayyira meaning she herself any is in a state any of confused, or in a state any of amazed any by her own any situation. So these things any is coming. So going back any to the second any situation, which is any al-mubtada'a ghayrul mumayyizah, yani a beginner who is unable any to distinguish the characteristics any of the blood. If she saw blood any more than the maximum what you call it, a number of days any for menses, then the menses any is considered to be the first day, the considered to be the 24 hours any of the first day any of when any she start any seeing the blood. If she says any for example I begin to saw blood any for example on the 3rd of Rabiul Awwal, until 23rd of Rabiul Awal, any all any red any color. From the 3rd of Rabiul Awal, any on all the way any until what you call it, the 23rd of Rabiul Awal. So we take any 24 hours, and from the time any she spot any the blood, we take any 24 hours. So we tell her that the first day any is menses, the rest any is considered any to be istihadah. The rest any is considered to be istihadah. So this is any the situation any of the beginner. Unless any if she has a norm, then we go back any to her. We go back any to her norm. This is the next situation. So I hope any it is clear any inshallah. I hope any it is clear, and there is no need any for me to demonstrate. Now, if you have question, any you can ask. If you have question, you can ask. Okay, there's one question here. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Recently read that it is allowed for a woman to cut nails during menses. Is it true? Is makruh? Any pertaining any to cutting nails any when menses? It is makruh. This is mentioned by Al-Imam Ghazali and in Ihya Ulumuddin. Clear inshallah? Taib. Inshallah, we have a bit more time. Any time of Azan of Isha has not come. Now, inshallah, we look at the third situation. The third situation is the author mentioned Al-Mubtadaah Mumayyizah. So I translated the one who has also I haven't really translate. This just need some editing, and I was doing it in a rush in reality. Ala kulli hal the one who has a habitual menstruation. Meaning, she is the opposite of the beginner. She has experienced menses. This is basically the meaning of Muqtada. A woman who has experienced menses, and she is able to distinguish the blood. She is able to distinguish the blood. For example, then she said that my menses every month 6 days. Every month during the second week of the month, for example. Every month during the second week of the month, 6 days my menses. But suddenly, this month comes I saw blood for 20 days. So we asked her, can you distinguish the characteristics of the blood? So she said that she can distinguish the characteristics and the characteristics of the blood. So she is a person who has a habitual menstruation and is able to distinguish the blood. طيب. So he said, وَهِيَ الَّتِي تَرَى قَوِيًّا وَضَعِيفًا كَمَا تَقَدَّمَ. This is the meaning of Mumayyizah. She is able to distinguish the darker color and the weaker color. فَيُحْكَمُ لَهَا بِتَمْيِيزٍ لَا عَادَةٍ. So now, for example, let me just give an example. She said, for example, that every month I saw blood for 6 days. My menses 6 days every month. This month 20 days. This month 20 days. So we ask her, for example, can you distinguish the color of the blood? She said yes. She said the first 10 days is black in color. The second 10 days is red in color. But she said that my norm is only 6 days every month. But this month I saw 20 days. The first 10 days is black in color. The second 10 days is red in color. So now the question we ask, do we ascertain the menses based on her norm or based on the distinguishment of the blood? So maybe what I will do is I will write this down. Let me write this down, so that inshallah easy for you to understand. Okay, so now the situation is like this. Now she said that monthly 6 days, correct or not? So she said that every second week of the month, my menses is usually 6 days, my norm. This is considered to be mu'tada, correct or not? To the second week. But she saw 20 days. This month she saw how many? 20 days of blood. So she can distinguish this 20 days she said 10 days black, 10 days red. This is black. This is red. Tamam? Okay, so now how do we ascertain the menses? Do we go back 6 days? Based on what? Based on the norm? Or we say that this is the menses, the black is the menses, while the red is istihadah. This is istihadah. So which one any is which? Do we give precedence any to the norm, or we give any precedence any to the distinguishment any of the characteristic any of the blood? Which is it? The answer is we give any precedence any to the distinguishment of the blood. This is what any Al-Imam Bajuri any mentioned. Then he said, then the distinguishment any of the color any of the blood is stronger than the norm. So when there is a clash between the norm and the distinguishment any of blood, we give any precedence to the distinguishment any of blood because any it is stronger than going back any to the norm. So now when we go back any to what Al-Imam Bajuri any mentioned, look at what he said. He said, فَيُحْكَمُ لَهَا بِتَمْيِيزٍ لَا عَادَةٍ. So we go back any to tamyiz, any meaning the distinguishment any of the color characteristics any of the blood, not any the norm. مُخَالَفَةً لَهُ إِنْ لَمْ يَتَخَلَّلْ بَيْنَهُمَا أَقَلُّ طُهْرِ. إِنْ لَمْ يعني يَتَخَلَّلْ يعني بَيْنَهُمَا أَقَلُّ طُهْرِ فَلَوْ كَانَتْ عَادَتُهَا خَمْسَةً. He gave an example. If her norm is 5 days, من أول شهر وبقيته طهر فلما نزل عليها الدم استمر 14 أسود من أول شهر وبقية أحمر كان حيضها 10 لا 5. So this is what any we mentioned, that in between any there must be what you call it, if any between any the two blood, the lesser any color any is more than 15 days, then any we go back any to the distinguishment of the characteristic any of the characteristics any of the blood, as what any we mentioned one of the conditions number 3 any pertaining any to the conditions any of tamyiz. So this is exactly any what the author any mentioned. He said that if she saw blood normally any 5 days, and then after that any the blood any comes any for more than 15 days, and the first 10 days any is 10, the rest any is the weak blood, and before any the next blood comes, there is in between more than 15 days any, then we consider any the first any 10 days any is menses, and we do not any consider the norm that is 5 days any to be menses. This is what any he said. He said, واستمر 14 أسود من أول شهر. She saw yani 10 what you call it, black and in color, and the rest any she saw red. Then the menses any is the 10 days and not the 5 days any based on norm. Then any he mentioned the anna tamyiza aqwa min al-ada. This is any the reason, this is the illah. Yani because any the distinguishment any of blood, as what we mentioned, it is stronger any than the what you call it, than the norm. لأنه علامة في الدم وهي علامة في صاحبته. Because any this distinguishment any is an indication any of the difference any of the nature of the blood. فلو كانت العادة غير مخالفة للتمييز كما لو كانت عادتها 5 أيام من أول شهر فجاء التمييز كذلك حكم لها بهما معا. If 5 days any based on norm, 5 days any based on the distinguishment, then no problem any we say it is 5 days any as the 5 days any as menses. Wallahu a'lam any bis sawab. So inshallah ta'ala we will then stop here because any of time, and we will continue any next week and inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbana taqabbal du'ana innaka antas samiul alim wa tub alayna innaka antat tawwabur rahim. واختم الصالحات عملا وأجرا الله يكرم. فضل سبحان ربك بالعزة عما يصفون. سلام على المرسلين. الحمد لله رب العالمين.